Hey everybody, this is Larry. This is day 14th of the July Leetcode Daily Challenge. So middle of the or 2 weeks in. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, join me in Discord. Let me know what you think about today's farm. And of course, today, as you can maybe see, my lighting is terrible. I look like a ghost. But also that I'm using a different mic this time. This thing, the Apple thing. So let me know if it's better. I mean, obviously, I'm going to try to listen myself, but let me know what you think about it. Hopefully, it'll be good. Yeah. So yeah, happy Wednesday, everybody. Today's problem is custom sort string. So order, and order. Everything is whatever. Order is sorted in some custom order. We want to permutate the characters such that they match the order. Okay. More specifically, if X is before Y, then X. Okay. Where does the D come from? D does not contain it. It can be any position in the return string. Okay. That's kind of a weird way of doing it, but okay. Yeah, so I mean, this is a sorting problem. This is something that I think back in the day, back when I was younger, you might have to implement this manually. Back in my day, you would have to do it in C, and even in interviews, you might actually have to implement this in a some sort of way. In any way, maybe there are a couple of ways to do it, but in some sort of way. Yeah, but on nowadays though, sorting is actually in pretty much every language library. Unless you're doing some kind of crazy embedded system type thing, you probably don't need to do it yourself. And even then, you probably don't need to do it yourself. The libraries, standard libraries, and the even more optimized libraries on every whatever you're doing. Mostly, maybe not JavaScript. I don't know. I never know anything about JavaScript. But in any case, so that's basically it. So now it becomes a question of how do you use that library. So even though usually if you're a watcher of this channel, you know that I don't like doing anything language specific per se. I mean, or at least when I do, I will explain it. So definitely play around with your language. I think this is a very good problem to practice that and kind of see what limits there are to your language, right? So anyway, in this case, what I want to say is that mine is going to be slightly Python specific, or maybe very Python specific. So yeah. So let me know, how you think about it. And there's going to be some assumptions that may only apply to Python, but not in your language. So let's get this started in here. So okay. So now we just get the order. I put order in the mapping that we can look up later in all one time. So that's basically what I'm going to do. So maybe I call it order map is equal to, I'm going to put a default dictionary. I actually was thinking about just putting a regular dictionary, but I'm going to put it in a default dictionary because we want to also map things that don't appear. Or maybe not map, just at least look up things that don't appear and then set up. You can also use like a dictionary with default keyword or something like that, depending on how you want to do them. But that's just different ways of doing it. So now we can do something like for, index. Okay, so I guess actually let's set the default to just say 30. And this is just a number that's bigger than 26. Otherwise, has no really, it's just a big infinity number for what the purpose is, because it doesn't matter about the ordering of all the other ones. For me, I'm going to choose to put all the numbers or all the characters that don't exist at 30, and that's the at the end pretty much. So yeah, so in enumerate order, we set order map of C is equal to index, and then now that we have this, we can just easily let's change this as string is a really bad keyword in Python, that's why. But let's just call it input. It doesn't really, what input is, oh yeah, that's right. Let's just call it, naming stuff is hard. Let's just call it sort string, say. And then now we just do sort string dot, I think we have to convert it to a list. I think this converts a string to a character list. Could be wrong. I never know. There's a lot of magic things in Python that I always have to double check because I forget. But I am old and I know, or I'm familiar with too many languages. So, and I don't use Python outside of this, so that's why that's not true. I use Python outside of this, but not like in weird ways, right? Like, I mean, how many times have you thought, okay, I have a string and I need to convert that to a list of characters? Not very often. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it in any case. But okay. So now we have a character, and then now we can just sort, and we sort by the key, which we have. We map a character to an order map of the character, and that's pretty much it. And then this will, well, actually, what we want is not. Well, depending on how you want to write it, but this is the wrong syntax for it. We want actually this kind of sort, and then now we want to, and yeah, and now we want to join it by this, and then return it, and I think that should be good enough. Even though I feel like I say that a lot recently, and I've been very sloppy lately, but let's give it a run. This looks good. Wait, let's kind of add more characters, just for fun, and kind of see. I don't know if this expected answer is, because the expected answer doesn't really matter, right? Or it might not be the same as our answer, but it still may be correct because there are more than one answers, is what I mean. So I wish that they just said whether they match. I mean, it really is trivial because they already have it, but well, whatever. But yeah, but that's enough for me to. That's enough for me to give it a submit. And of course, you can actually compress this code to be shorter if you're one of those people who like to play around with short code. My opinion on that while I'm here, I hope this is right because otherwise that's sad. Yeah, so this is good. My opinion on these shortest code, and I get this a lot, particularly from people who are maybe less experienced. And kind of, to be honest, it's a really big tell that you're not that experienced if you get impressed by code that is like really short for no reason. Or I mean, and sometimes there's a place for it, and sometimes it's cool to kind of write and challenge yourself in different ways. But for me, the number one thing that you should worry about when you write about code is, well, okay, fine. Number one is get it correctly, but two is readability, right? You should aim to write code that is be able to be read by other people as easily as possible. Sometimes I have a little fun with it. Like, to be honest, this is probably a little bit sloppier, less readable than I would like, but I have fun with it. And on interviews, maybe maybe it doesn't come up as much, but in any so I don't really find that impressive, and I feel like only relatively amateur people or in specific situations find it impressive. So don't yeah. So aim to write readable code, because unless you're using Perl, things should not be right once. You should like you should ask yourself. There are a couple of ways to think about it. You can either say you should write code so that it's readable by anyone and able to change your code. Let's say now they want to change this to I don't know, let's say the order is backwards or something like that, right? Can someone look at your code and then modify it and make changes in as quickly as possible because they look at your code and they can understand it in a level that they can solve variation of the code with that code, right? So that's question number one. Number two is, and I don't know about you, but I do, this happens to me a lot, maybe because I'm getting older and my memory is terrible and all that stuff, is that, if I come back to this code in a year, will I be able to go, okay, this makes sense. I know what I did here, right? And very often, I mean, maybe this particular problem is a little bit easier, but there are times where you may go, wow, I don't remember this context. Like, why did I do it this way? Well, you did it this way for a specific reason, but because of your code, you don't know why you did it in a particular way. Anyway, so that's basically my rant over there, because I feel like sometimes I get people over optimized, if you will. It's not even over optimization, because it doesn't, there's no, it's never really an improvement to make code that much shorter per se. I mean, there's some other principles there with respect to, dry, which is don't repeat yourself, and kind of writing code such that they're modular, they're, you reuse code, and and stuff like that. So when I say shortest code, I don't mean that. I just mean like, you see people trying to write one-liners for no reason, and no one understands the code unless they already like if they can only understand your code if they have already written the code, then it's probably a fail, right? You want people to be able to understand your code without understanding the whys. Anyway, okay, this is a long rant, and really it's not related to the problem, but I feel like sometimes, especially if you join my Discord channel, some people get really fun about it. And don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I was like that as well. In that I was like, oh, I could just make this a one-liner that changed very much. But unfortunately, no one knew it, and it'll come up on the code review. So you gotta practice that ahead of time. Anyway, okay, this is a very long rant. Let's go over the complexity real quick, and then let's call it a night. So what's the complexity here, right? So for each item in order, we go through it once, and for each once we go O of one, by calling it into a dictionary, right? So this part is going to be O of one. This part it's going to be n log n, where oh sorry, I think this is linear in the size of the order. So let's say m is equal to length of order and n is equal to length of sort string. Then this is going to be, well, this is O of m time and space, where this part is going to be O of n log n time and space. And there's really no way about it because because this is the lower bound for comparison-based sort. There are different ways to get this down in theory, depending on how you want to define it. But that's just me going over my code, right? So this is in total O of m plus n log n time and space. So you can actually optimize this in some ways if you want to call it that. If log n is or if n is big enough that log n is big, then you can also do an m plus n times alpha. I always like to call it alpha, but let's use an a because I'm lazy. Time and space by using a linear sort and noting that the size of the alphabet is 26, which is what I have alpha here, and then you could take advantage of that, of course. And actually, I actually messed up here. Now that I think about it a little bit more, is that order is actually not O of m, but it's actually O of alpha. Maybe m plus alpha if you want to call it that. Or actually not. I know that is m plus alpha is how I phrase it, but it's actually min of m or alpha. So maybe I'll just put it here, min of, even though it's not quite the standard notation. So min of m or a alpha, because at worst this has 26 characters, which is the size of the alphabet, right? So m is bounded by that. You could phrase it however you like. So I guess actually m always is less than alpha. So maybe it's still just m, where m is always less than alpha. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. You could be as precise as you want on sometimes on these, because there's a lot of nuance and defining things. But yeah, that's all I have. And this is going to be the lower bound for if you use a comparison-based sort. And here is if you use a linear sort type thing, quote unquote linear. I always find that a little bit awkward, but yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. Let's call it a night. Have a great Wednesday. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Join me on Discord. We're going to chat about this or other problems. Have a great night. Stay cool. Stay healthy. To good mental health. And I will see you later. Bye-bye.